If you clicked on this video, I am assuming that you have found yourself in some sort of slump. So today I'm going to share with you a few reasons that you may have found yourself in this situation and some active ways that you can get out of it starting today if you choose. Before we get started, make sure you check the down bar for links to all my social media platforms. Subscribe if you are new here. Thumbs up the video if you enjoy it. Definitely stick around if you are interested in more content surrounding the topics of beauty, mental health, wellness, and everything in between. And again, definitely come hang out with me on my other social media platforms. All that information is down below. So there are 5 practical tips in this video today. Some of it's going to be surrounding mindset. Some of it is just kind of that OG get your ish together pep talk. And of course, because it's one of my videos, there's going to be some glowy talk. So stay tuned if you want to learn more about it. First thing that I would like to clear up before we go any further is that a slump and a rut are not the same thing as untreated mental illness. If you find that you are having these bouts of low to zero motivation frequently, you are experiencing a lack of optimism or enjoyment in your regular everyday activities, and you can't really seem to shake it when you do feel that way, I would highly suggest that you consider seeking out professional help, because depression, a rut, and a slump, I don't want in any shape, way, or form for it to come across that I'm saying these are all the same things. The ideal way out of these 3 things are not the same, and no amount of go get 'em girl is going to help you if you are suffering from some kind of chemical imbalance. I am not a professional in the medical health field. I'm just an advocate who has struggled with mental health myself, and I can tell you that in the times that I have dealt with depression, once again, there was no amount of motivational speeches in the world that was going to get me out of it. It really was a matter of seeking appropriate treatment. I've struggled with mental illness most of my life, and I even went for inpatient treatment back in October. So hear me when I say I support you in finding help for your issues. And anyone who is hanging out on this little corner of the internet probably feels the same way as well. If, however, you would not classify what you are going through as depression, you think it is actually some sort of slump or rut that you are in, here are a few things to consider when it comes to what kind of started this slump or rut. So perhaps your slump or rut is actually the byproduct of some significant burnout. And in 2022, with so many of us wearing so many different hats and going through so many things, it's safe to say that I would think in a span of 5 to 10 years, we're going to look back on this period in history and notice that the amount of people who were struggling with significant levels of burnout was probably a lot higher than what would be considered kind of the average. I guess what I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me if most of us are feeling pretty burnt out at this point. Burnout is something I am determined to get a hold of in 2022. It's probably my biggest New Year's resolution. I really need to start paying attention to my body when it's giving me very clear signs that that is exactly what I'm doing. So according to an article I found discussing burnout, some of the major signs that you should look out for are forgetfulness and difficulty concentrating, diminished pride in your work, whatever that may be, losing sight of yourself and your goals, difficulty maintaining your relationships or being present, frustration and irritability with those around you, and unexplained muscle tension, pain, fatigue, and insomnia. As far as the muscle tension thing is concerned, I can tell you that that is so real. In fact, part of the reason you guys haven't seen me for the past few weeks is because back in December, on December 12th to be precise, I woke up to the most intense muscle spasms. I mean, I've never experienced them before, but when I tell you that I almost passed out from the pain, I almost passed out from the pain. And it was definitely my body's way of telling me that something is off. My body's actually pretty consistently been communicating with me that I'm working too much, going too hard, and I keep ignoring it. So according to Amelia Nagoski, co-author of Secrets to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, quote, burnout manifests itself as illness. She also notes that just like it takes time to recover from a broken bone or severe infection, it also takes time to recover from burnout. But maybe your issue isn't burnout. Maybe you're recovering from a particularly tough time in your life. Maybe you've lost someone close to you. I know that when I lost my mom in 2019, it took me a long time to even feel like myself again. Maybe you have ended a significant relationship. Maybe there's been some sort of personal failure that you're having a hard time moving on from. But, slumps, ruts, or periods of time that you feel significantly underwhelmed with the life that you once enjoyed and felt very happy and passionate about can be symptomatic of so many things, none of which should be discredited or minimized. Again, our bodies are always communicating with us, and if something feels off to you, there's probably a very good and very real reason for that, and I encourage you to do some deep diving and figure out what is at the root of this slump or this rut. I don't really think any of the tips I'm going to give you guys today are going to be particularly helpful if you can't pinpoint exactly what is going on with you, for how long it's been going on, and kind of how consistently, like for example, with the burnout cycle I'm on, it's important to note the frequency at which these kind of incidents might be happening with you. Now, let's move on to what you can do to get over this slump. Shall we, baby doll? So the first tip I'm going to give you is to do the next right thing. One of the first things my therapist ever said to me when I started attending therapy way back in 2017, was that anytime I felt overwhelmed, or I felt like my emotions were really getting the best of me, or I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, something very practical and easy I could do to kind of get back on the right track would be to focus on doing the next right thing. And that really stuck with me, not only because is it right as rain, but it's so simple. To focus as much as humanly possible on just doing the next right thing. When you're trying to get back on your feet in whatever way, it can seem super, super overwhelming to just take that first step back towards normalcy. Normally, the thing that precedes your slump or your rut can kind of be hard to just let go of and move on from right away. In my case, like, this is my first video back in several weeks, and it wasn't the easiest thing to get excited about for me because I was incredibly overwhelmed with how behind I was. In a short period of time, I had that that neck injury that I'm just now starting to feel completely recovered from, and I got sick. So coming back and trying to get my head back above water truly felt like an insurmountable task. The first thing that I decided to do was focus on some IRL things I could do in my immediate surroundings that would just get me back into the habit of putting one foot in front of the other again. I don't really feel like myself when I'm not working on my channel, but I also knew that I wasn't paying that attention or giving that focus to other areas of my life that truly do help me feel like myself. So coming back to YouTube was not the first right decision that I made. It was not the immediate next right thing that I could do. Not by a long shot. The first right thing I could do were things like taking my vitamins, getting fresh air, working through tough or limiting feelings, communicating what I needed for my friends and family, etc. But there was a conscious choice on my part to try and make those next right choices over and over and over again. The good news is, this is one of the things on the list that you can literally implement today. You can stop this video and immediately move on to doing the next right thing that you need to do to pull yourself out of this rut. And trust me, no matter how minute or insignificant you might think that next right thing is, believe me when I tell you, it truly is a matter of just taking that step. Just do the next right thing and focus only on that. Again, this is that whole, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step thing we hear all the time. And it's such a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. So if I would have gotten out of the hospital back in October, for example, and the second I walked out of the front door, I immediately inundated myself with my to-do list. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta get my daughter's birthday cake, and I gotta start my business back up, and I gotta answer 1,000 emails, and I gotta get ready for my in-laws to come to town, and I gotta clean my master bedroom and buy a new car before my husband goes back to work. I had so much to do when I got out of the hospital. I probably wouldn't have been able to even begin to maintain the level of health that I acquired in the hospital if I would have focused so much on all the stuff that I had to do. Really, the first thing that I did when I got home was just unpack my suitcase, and I let that kind of guide my decisions. Just start by unpacking my suitcase, and then after I did that, I wanted to take a big hot glowy shower. It was just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other, little by little, day by day, minute by minute. If the next right thing for you to do is to let your emotionally draining sister's phone call go to voicemail, do it. If the next right thing to do is take a long shower and brush your hair, do it. A quote that comes to mind and that I've always loved in times like these by Morgan Harper Nichols is, "Even if the wait carries on another year, I will not get where I am going without first learning to be here." It speaks to kind of how we may feel really impatient for change. We can feel really stuck and frustrated when we look at the road before us, but we cannot get there without first learning how to be right here. And what we can always do right here is what? The next right thing. The next tip I have for you is to engage in as much active rest as possible. People who work out a lot can sometimes be heard advocating for something called active rest. It can mean whatever to whoever, but a really good example of something like that is yoga. The idea is that you're not stressing out your body or doing too much, but you're getting still some kind of movement in through yoga. You're stretching out those hard worked muscles. It's just really good overall for recovery. You're gonna want to do something like that as you transition back to the person that you used to be before this burnout or rut or whatever came into your life. It's kind of a way of like gently wrapping your brain around the future. Even if it's scary and overwhelming, try not to avoid that, because now actually is a really good time to start focusing on the future with as much slap happy optimism as you can muster. And that's right, I'm talking vision boards, people. Firm plans on like grinding or even a huge interest in doing so might not be here right now, but it can be a positive thing to kind of start working things out and finding your way back to what you want and why you wanted it in the first place. Yeah, you guessed it. I'm going to recommend that you start with planning. Getting things back on the to-do lists, writing some routines you want to try, figuring out some small areas of your life that you feel you could be immediately beneficial to, more on that later. Even a good old-fashioned brain dump can be so cleansing and soothing just to get it all out of here and on paper, even if we're not quite ready to take action yet. That's the active rest. It's not taxing to write out the plans. We're just trying to get it out there right now. You could do this through something like journaling also. You just really want to get some sort of tangible activity going that gets your mind around the idea of moving forward and kind of maintaining perspective on the big picture while doing so, which in my opinion is always really, really helpful. Slumps or breakdowns or fails or L's or whatever you want to call them can really shatter your confidence in yourself. And finding a way to kind of get your vision back down on paper or in your notes app or whatever can be such a great way to put you on the path of point one, for example, which is do the next right thing. I'm not being dramatic if literally all you do is make a to-do list about how you're going to wash your hair today and then checking each step off as you accomplish it. We're really just trying to train ourselves and re-energize ourselves and kind of develop that proof of concept that I can say I'm going to do something and then actually follow through with it. Another quote that I love to meditate on is walk towards the good life and one day you will arrive. But yeah, if you do enough of the next right thing and you're giving yourself tangible, small, little itty bitty goals to at least start thinking on and wrapping your brain around, that's going to be particularly helpful as we move on to the next tip, which is to get all up in them glowy vibes. The first thing that I wanted to do when I got out of the psych ward after 4 days was take the glowiest shower of life. I mean, I booked my manis and pedis, I booked hair appointment, I booked my wax appointment, I wore my favorite outfits and jewelry everywhere I went, I did my hair and makeup. It just felt so good to put that effort back into myself again. It is something that I talk about a lot on my channel, which is connecting your inner and outer self to each other, especially when you look at it from the perspective that I look at it from, which is very like divine feminine vibes. And grooming, things like grooming and taking that time for yourself is truly kind of expressing respect and care for yourself in a very literal, tangible, visible way. I mean, I always say we can't really take our hearts and our souls out and put them in our hands and tweak and tend to them, but we can sort of invite that that energy of care and connection to ourselves through our grooming and self-care habits. And I encourage you to do it if for no other reason, because as I've said many times on this channel, no one is going to do it for you. I mean, obviously you can pay someone to do it, but you still got to make the appointments and show up to them. So yesterday I was on the old Peloton, and one of my favorite instructors, Robin, said something that I loved so much. She said that self-care is sacred. Your time on this bike is sacred. What a beautiful way to look at this part of your recovery. Non-negotiable and sacred. Glowy vibes are obviously not limited to things like hair appointments and showers. Think about things like your nutrition as a part of this. Now, this is something I was really not good about when I first got out of the hospital. That's because during the time leading up to me going inpatient, I was dealing with a huge anxiety disorder. I was having panic attacks, multiple panic attacks daily for about 10 days. And in that time, it went on for about 2 weeks. I couldn't eat anything. I was living on Ensure and vitamins, and it showed. By the time I got out of the hospital, like, my nails were brittle and breaking, my toenails in particular. My hair was thinning and falling out. My skin was listless and dull. It was just, you could see on my physical being how poor my nutrition had been. And then even when my appetite came back, I wasn't focusing on eating any kind of like nourishing whole foods. It was literally just shoveling anything into my mouth that I could get. This isn't to say that in this time of recovery, you need to focus on doing burpees and counting macros. No. I just want to illuminate for you guys the huge connection between mental health and gut health, not only from something I've experienced myself, obviously, but it's been heavily documented and it's being studied a lot. A lot of experts are considering our gut basically our second brain, and when one of them is out of alignment, it does affect the other. You can participate in the glowy aspect of your recovery however you see fit, but if you haven't heard my spiel on this before, here it is. Okay, take this journey with me. I want you to imagine a shrine built for a goddess. Okay, close your eyes. Take this journey. So you're probably imagining a beautiful and serene setting with the scent of perfume and flowers in the air, lush greenery all around, and there's beautiful pillows at the foot of the gilded and meticulously cared for statue of your goddess. What are you gonna bring to the goddess? Is it gonna be Twinkies and sweatpants, or is it going to be nourishing, nutritionally dense food and the finest things that you own? You are both the goddess and the one at the altar in this metaphor, so act accordingly. And my final point, and perhaps one of the most important ones, is to expect and to accept the stumbly bumblies. Yes, stumbly bumblies, it's not a medical term, but I couldn't think of any other way to put this. You're probably still gonna have bad days. You're probably still gonna feel sometimes like you want to give up, or that moving forward seems too difficult or too arduous a path to walk. Just expect that and accept that. A quote that I love by Glennon Doyle comes to mind. She says, "Be messy and complicated and afraid and show up anyways." It takes courage and determination and sheer force of will sometimes to just show up. But even if that's all you can do today, again, revert back to point one. Do the next right thing, remember? If that is all you can do is just show up, then that is enough. It's in your power to do so. And it's actually the only thing you ever have control over in the long run anyway. It's what you do. It can be okay that things are just not going to turn out to be some Anne Hathaway rom-com revenge flick or whatever. These things take time. It's a great opportunity to practice patience, not only with life in general, but also with yourself. But if you can accept and expect that these self-doubting thoughts are probably still going to pop up every once in a while, you know, the same way that you expect or accept that if you spend too much time unprotected at the beach, you're probably going to end up with a sunburn. I mean, you know it's going to sting a little and it might make you want to retreat back inside, but it shouldn't stop you from ever wanting to feel the warmth of the sun on your skin again. We just got to do the next right thing and keep trying. As I was gathering my notes and kind of my thoughts for this video today, I came around to a book called Burning Bright: Rituals, Reiki, and Self-Care to Heal Burnout, Anxiety, and Stress by Kelsey J. Patel. This is a book I immediately picked up and started reading it last night. And the first few pages or so, she talks a lot about stress and the effects that it has on us, and how in our modern times we tend to really accept that as a fact of life when it truly does not need to be. And at the very least, if it is, it also needs to be a fact of life that we put a lot of energy into managing our stress. So I just wanted to share that with you guys in case you wanted something like homework or any other kind of guide that could give you more insight onto why it's so important to manage your stress and how important it is to really pay attention to the symptoms and signs of things like burnout and ruts, especially if it, again, like I said, it's something like a pattern you tend to fall into, which is surely the case for me. And I'm heavily considering making it the Patreon book club pick, which I've not been the most active on Patreon lately. By the way, thank you to the patrons for still riding with me. But yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that that's what I'm currently reading. And if I find anything in there that's even more helpful that I think I would like to share with you guys, I will find a way to create another video around this. So that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm glad to be back. I'm feeling much better. Happy 2022, and I will catch you on the next one.